Okay, everybody, I want to welcome Don Buckingham. He is going to enlighten us with a demo on nocturnal painting. And I will turn it over to her and do your thing.
Thank you. I was a career educator, starting in the elementary school classroom, not teaching art, and then moving on to nonprofit education and actually helping teachers with curriculum development, teacher training, and that sort of thing. So I started my pastel journey as a new adventure when I retired from education in about 2012. And prior to that, back in the dark ages, before I had kids or a career, I did a few happy trees with Bob Ross and did some oil painting. And then the local art association in this little community I lived in said $25, come learn to pastel and bring your art supplies. Well, I called them up and I said, I don't have any supplies. And the teacher was gracious enough to say, well, just come and I'll give you the supplies to use. So she gave me a piece of art and set out a box of Terry Ludwig's. Little did I know, but I was in Colorado. And so after that $25 class, I launched. My daughter was sweet enough to send me a picture of the first ribbon I ever won after I took that $25 class. And then a picture of me at the festival last summer and said, look, Mom. So that was fun. That's my way of basically saying that I am not self-taught. I am taught by all the other gracious pastel artists that I've ever worked with who have shared with me. And I am happy to share whatever I've learned from them, whatever I picked up on my own. I don't think there are any secrets. It's through the community of artists that I've learned and grown and whatever I know. So the message is there is no wrong way to approach this. Everybody takes the 35 different kinds of pastel papers and the 30 different kinds of soft pastels and puts them into a combination that allows you to speak your voice. So all I do with my nocturnes is use my voice. It's a fairly soft voice. I've tried really hard to be a colorist and I can't figure that out. So I tend to layer lightly. I move quickly. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I learned to pastel not in the studio, but outside painting with my friends doing plein air. Now, I was really lucky that part of that friend group was Terry Ludwig, Norbert Nagel, Mike Ray, Sabrina Stiles, and we painted every week. And we did these things in 90 minutes. We had a little critique and then we went and had lunch. And dear Terry Ludwig, my favorite memory of painting with him is every time one of us would drop a pastel and it would crumble into a million pieces on the ground, he'd go, ching. But he was really a very, very generous man and would often bring us pastels to share new colors that he was working on. So that with that, I'll get started. This is my process. This is how I do it. Feel free to ask questions as we go along, and I will do it quickly because we've got an hour. The first thing that I do whenever I start a painting, and I don't care whether it's in the studio, whether it's plein air, no matter where I am, I do a 3-value no-tan. So this is what I am going to be working on today. This is actually a backlit marsh scene from Rapperswil, Switzerland. And this was just a marshy area. My daughter was waiting for me to finish sketches before I would go to the Christmas market when it got dark. So I tend to work in the same aspect ratio all the time. It helps my composition. And so I draw out a box, usually that's about 3 inches by 4 inches. And that's how I start my 3-value no-tan. These are the roadmaps. This is the way that I figure out what I'm going to do on the surface before I start. And I think it's the most important thing we do as artists. And I had a student come to me one time and say, Dawn, this painting just isn't working. I can't figure out. So I looked at it and I saw some compositional issues, and I said, well, let's go back and look at your no-tan and see what you did. And she said, well, I didn't really like my no-tan, so I threw it away and just started. I said, that's kind of like putting in Google Maps to get someplace in LA and getting halfway there and deciding you don't want to listen anymore. So you turn it off and you get lost. And that's how I feel about this. So I generally start out by deciding where my, whether this is going to be more about the water or whether it's going to be more about the sky. I don't really want my horizon line at dead center. So I'm going to go in and decide that this is going to be more about the reflections in the water. And I start by putting in my mid values. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm squinting down, I'm value averaging. I like to see, is this closer to a dark or closer to a light? And then I can go in and add my dark values, kind of like this. Now this is a very simplistic landscape. And I'm using this as my center of interest. So I'm going to push it over a bit and put it in that kind of 1/3 area. I'm trying to do this so I don't stand right in front of it always. And this is just a really basic, very simplistic, and you'll see when we start doing the workshop this afternoon how a street scene can get more complex. So I've got my dark values there, my medium values here. This is predominantly light, and yes, I recognize that there are some light blues up there, but they're closer to the light than they are the medium or the dark. And so that's how I look at it.
Can I ask what you're using to draw your no-tan?
I always use a brush tip marker. Some of my favorite are Tombow, and so this one was a Tombow grayscale marker. And this one is a Micron brush tip, but I also have a Tombow black. And the idea is really to make them very solid. It looks like that pen is running out. This is often what my no-tans look like. They're just big, bold, interesting abstract shapes. I'm not drawing trees or buildings. I'm just getting, so any way you look at these, it should make a nice abstract feel. So that's where I go from there. This afternoon, and then when I start, I don't look at this. I put this away. The only thing I want to look at when I start is my no-tan. And if I'm working outside, I will even sometimes turn away from the scene and only paint from my no-tan to get started. There's so much out there. And if this is my composition, it's not going to do me any good to look out at a distance. I have 3 different pastel setups, and I found it very handy to have them staged, and my plein air setups I carry in the car, and they just live there. And then I'm really lucky to have a studio where I have a studio set. My lightweight pastel box that I carry when I travel internationally is a Dakota Small, which is like a 9x12 with a lid that comes up. This is the Dakota Small box that has the 9 things, and I keep my pastels arranged the same way in all my boxes, including my home set, because there's muscle memory in knowing if I stand here like this and I don't look, these are my dark purples, these are my light purples, my neutrals are over here. I can reach for a yellow right there. I know where they are, and it's consistent in all my work areas, so that I don't have to stop and think about that too much. Okay, I like to work with an underpainting because I do a lot of quick draw competitions, and I also do a lot of plein air, and I find that it really speeds things up. I could do this same photo on a light surface or a warm surface. I could make that work. Today I'm choosing this blue surface because it is pretty consistent with the photo reference as kind of a harmonious color from top to bottom. And it's also going to speed it up. So I don't have to do an underpainting and wait for it to dry. I don't have to layer on a lot of dark value on a warm, which would give me a different effect. This is going to allow me to move really quickly.
You have a question?
Yes.
Is that a produced color?
Yes. This is a piece of pastel matte, which is one of my favorite surfaces to work on. It's expensive, but it works really well with smooth, buttery, Sennelier, Terry Ludwig's. And it does hold wet media as well. I don't use one of the most important things that, and I have it hidden down here someplace, I'll find it this afternoon. One of my most important tools is my value scale. And when you work on a nocturne, I don't use any blacks and I don't use very many bright whites. And I keep the range of values fairly compressed near the darker side of the value scale, but I still have a range of dark and medium and light. They're just dark darks, medium darks, and more dark lights with some pops of color. So I'm going to start out here and look at this blue, and then this afternoon I'm going to talk about the trap of photographs. I won't go into it right now. Photographs can be your worst enemy when doing a nocturne. Don't trust them. They're all wrong. They look much darker than they are. These look like black trees. They are not black trees. And I was there and sketched, and that's how I know. But I'm going to go in and decide that what I want to use for this is actually one of my favorite Terry Ludwig colors, which is a really dark mahogany, kind of a red violet. And I'm just going to go with my sketch here and begin to put those in. So there's kind of my line of my horizon line. And then I've got some of these that are coming up. And these don't have to be exactly, in fact, I don't really want them to be exactly what I'm seeing. This is a fairly light application of that. And so what I really want to see is that I've got this on here the way that I have it on my roadmap. I keep the, yes?
So why did you pick that particular color, maybe not like dark blue or?
I picked this particular color because being there on location, and if you, you can come up and look at this later when I'm done working with it, there is a row of kind of warm brown marshy grasses in front of this, and this light in the background, that golden light, really comes through, and it's a warm color. It's a warm dark. It's not a cold blue dark like you would have with moonlight or with snow. Instead, that's a warm light that's coming through there. And I just feel like it is a better choice for me, for the mood that I want to create.
Dawn, do you ever go into like Photoshop? Some of these artists do that, manipulate it, and say bring out the trees and then print it out so you actually.
Yes, and this afternoon I'll talk about that because I've got a stack of photos that I've done that are just printed, and then what I've done to enhance them to make them work for painting. So yeah, I do that quite a bit. I'll go in and do that. All right, so now this is the other part that's really helps speed things up. And that is, I like doing an alcohol underpainting. And this is 91% alcohol, so it hopefully will dry faster. And I like using a fan brush. I feel like the fan brush gives me, and the pastel mat does not run and granulate quite as well as a sanded paper like a UART 400. But it does give me a little bit of and this changes a little bit as it dries. And it also sets it a bit, because on a piece like this, I will do a lot of negative painting to bring out my lights. And then okay. All right, so that'll take just a minute for that to dry. While that's drying, I will tell you that one of the sets that I brought, I don't know if it's a set they still have or whether it was a special set, but temperature is really important when you're doing a nocturne. And this Tara Ludwig set is wonderful. I think it's called Mountain Sunrise, because it has a full value range of warm and cools in this kind of yummy lavender, gray, red, violet, and so it's a good mix for this. The other thing that I'll show you while I'm waiting for this to dry, and I'll admit I'm a bit of a just try things and share that you do wild exploration. I just got back from Amsterdam visiting my daughter. Went into an art supply store. They had only had these from France a week, and they are Sennelier woodless pastel pencils. And they come in, and I'm not getting, I don't work for Sennelier. I've never used them before, so I brought them today and thought we'd experiment. They do have labels on them, which are going to be a pain to remove, but they are a woodless pencil. I don't do a lot of detail, but I'm really excited to be able to use these on the side for some edge work. And the set that I got, because I wanted all the colors, is this 48 half stick. And when I went to Blick last week, they don't have them yet. They're not here. And when they do get them, they're like twice the cost. So if you know anybody in Europe that can bring them for you, have that happen.
Don't turn your back now.
I know. There's an alarm in there. All right, so now when I step back and I squint, I really think that I've gotten what I wanted in terms of that kind of layout. This is going to be where my focal point is going to be. I've got those shadows coming down, and now I can start building the painting. So I usually go in a nocturne from my darkest darks to my lightest lights and create that value sandwich. So I never do the lightest light possible because I always want to leave room for a highlight. And I never do the darkest dark at this point because I always want to have room to be able to go darker if I need it. So I'm putting that value sandwich in there somewhere in that range. Now is when I would pull out my photo reference if I were painting on in the studio, and now because I'm in, or if I were out on location, I would start looking at this where I can put that, you guys can see it, maybe there. Stick. I think I have to wrap the tape around it.
I can hold it for you, Don.
Wrap it around here like this so
Want me to hold
people
it
can
for
see
you?
it. Oh, no, you'd be standing there for 45 minutes with it.
Aw.
Thank you for offering, that's really lovely. All right, I'm gonna tuck this down behind because I don't want it in the way. I'm gonna work at the top first. So I'm now going into my lightest lights. The photograph looks white, it is not. It is not. And I want to pick up some warms in there. So I am going up with a Terra Ludwig, almost a peachy color. And when I test it over here, you can see how warm and peachy that is. And that's what that light was that I saw coming through. So I'll start out by putting some of that in here like this. And I'll be adding more in here in just a minute, but for now, that's where I'm going with that. And again, I put it here and save it out because I will use it someplace else in the painting. The next color that I want to think about is that kind of blue color in the sky. I don't tend to pick my colors ahead of time. That's too warm. I want it just a little cooler than that. All right, that's good. So I'm just blocking in where I want a lot of those colors. Now this is where my brain told me that these little pastels were going to come in handy, because what I really want to do, and that's too light, is find a place in here to kind of blend. That's too warm. Blend some of these colors together. Because yeah, I'm using the pencil, but I'm not drawing with it. I'm using it on the side to kind of see if I can get some of these blended in a little bit. I am not one to go in and do this, and I'll do it up here in the corner. That to me grays it down, and I lose the quality of letting the surface, the underneath surface color, inform the harmony from top to bottom in the painting. So I don't get my fingers into it much at all. Now this is a great opportunity for doing some negative painting, where I can actually come in and start playing around with some of these trees and seeing if I can get that feeling of looseness in there. And I often do that with the edge of my hard pastel. And I can actually get some tree trunks out of that dark underpainting by using that negative painting technique to begin to break up those shapes. So I really feel like I've got some interesting shapes in there. Now there's a little bit more contrast in the sky, and I'll use a very small piece of Ludwig in here, and for this I might smooth just a little bit in a couple places. Those are almost like clouds back there. Okay. So that's giving me a pretty good shape. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put in that really light area where the sun was coming through. Like this. There's a little bit more lightness down in here.
What color are you using?
This is a tint of a yellow, kind of a warm yellow. All right, so that's where that goes. Now, just because I don't want to lose the feeling of these shadows down here, I know my grasses are going to go in here and all my shadows are going to be below that. I'm going to put my reflections and my light areas in before I put those grasses in. It's feeling a little bit too light. Remember that lights in the sky always reflect slightly darker in the water, and lights in the darks on the land always reflect slightly lighter. So the verticals that you have on land will be lighter than what you see in the water when you go down. Okay, so that means if this is light, this needs to be slightly darker. If this is really dark, this needs to be slightly lighter when it's down here in the water. Okay, now I'm going to go in and pick out those grasses. And I think the grasses are a neutral tone, and what I'm picking out here is, it's a warm gray-green of a mid-value. And that's just a matter of going in and I'm getting a little bit of curling in my pastel mat. I think I went a little bit nuts with the rubbing alcohol. Sometimes that happens. I don't practice these before I come and do it. So what you see is me figuring it out on the fly. All right, so now those pop forward, and you can begin to see those grasses in there. Now I have most of what I want, not quite. I've got to get in here with a few other darks down in the foreground. That is too bright. So when I make a mark, I'm always comparing it to what it looks like. I mean, I can put it over here, but it's always what's next to it. And that's why I struggle sometimes to get everything picked out before I start working, because some of it just has to happen kind of live. All right, now I need a warmer color in the foreground, and that is actually where I think I'm going to go in with some of these, if this is dark enough. Nope, that's too light. I think that those are all going to be too light for what I want. I'm looking for a darker grayed color down there, and I think I may have to do it by layering. So we can't I mean, all of us know we can't mix color very easily with our pastels. We have to layer to get those colors. So I am going to go in with a brown, knowing that I have to layer something else over the top of it. And if I weren't doing this, okay, now I need to stand back and stare at it a little bit. Okay, it actually is feeling to me like it's starting to come together. So what I'm happy with so far is that I've got a good range of values. I've got my lights, I've got my darks in there as that part of that background. This color in here is working for me, and I've got this down. So to me, I'm about 85% done, and this is all my underpainting. The whole surface is covered, and now I start to go in and work on detail. And detail is just, it's kind of what calls me. I won't say that I always have that there's always a method to what I'm doing. So I am going to go in now and start filling in some of the detail in that background row of trees to get more of that warm glow in. I think what I'm seeing is that the dark area here is a little too fat for what I want in next to those grasses. So I am now going to go in with some of that lighter color. And what I used was this really light kind of an orange. I'm going to bring that down a value, the same hue, but a darker value. Not much, maybe only this much, to get it down into these trees just a little more. Yeah, that's too pink. I need it to be a little more, maybe I'll just try this one after all. When I get quiet, it's because I have to focus. I look behind me because when I'm painting plein air, I can't tell you how many times I've run into somebody. All right, so this part I'm really liking because it is allowing that surface to pop through. I'm getting the feeling of trees without drawing vertical lines. These are darker than what I have down here. And I've still maintained this kind of area right in here. So I'm going to continue, and that area of line of dark right behind that grass is now a little smaller and not as prominent, and that makes me happy. So I'm going to keep on here going from here to here. Questions at this point? No? All right. Is this anything that that's new or?
Excellent.
Okay, all right. You're so quiet, I'm getting nervous.
We're trying to keep up.
Do you call that painting sky holes or tree holes?
They're like the spaces between the trunks of the tree. I approach sky holes the same way. It's negative painting. You're painting not the tree itself, but the sky around it. And I just think it's a really,
You seem to get more pure color that way,
Yeah.
and not any smudging,
yeah,
and more definitive shapes.
it's the interesting shape that it feels more organic somehow. If I were to go in and start drawing tree trunks on there, that's what I remembered from elementary school, where you draw up and then finally the trunk is fatter and the top is skinnier, but that's how we start, how we approach it when we start. So and then I get permission to build on that sky and embellish it any way that I want. And that was an accidental mark. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, now we want some more of those fuzzy branches. And I have a couple of ways that I like to do those. And I'm wondering if these new little Sennelier pastels will help me with that. Usually my favorite thing, and it looks like I have, well, they may have to work because I robbed in my last class. It looks like somebody borrowed my vine charcoal. Oops, and I didn't get it back in there. Normally I take a piece of vine charcoal and I hold it at the very edge of my fingers, and as I push with it, I twist, and then that becomes some interesting branches that go up. These are now blue because that's the color of this new pastel that I had. I would prefer that it was my vine charcoal. But again, I'm not drawing, I'm just mark making. And that gives me some of those. So let's see if one of these dark pastels will do the same thing, if I've got one that's the right color. Oh yeah, here's a nice kind of a dark, it's not black. Actually, here's a really dark brown. I think that's what I prefer to use. Oh yeah.
You twisting now?
I'm twisting. So I'm holding it here and I'm twisting as I push. And that keeps me from being able to control it and makes it go where I want it to go. Those are so much better than the blue ones I started out with from that new pastel.
This is the Sennelier pastel.
These are these new Senneliers that I've never had out of the box until today at this demo, because I just got back from my trip on last Friday.
Are they soft?
Hmm?
Are they soft?
Yes, they are soft pastels. And they're woodless, so there's no wood in
Do
there.
they kind of like a new pastel texture or even softer?
It's softer than a new pastel.
Are they leaving marks on your fingers?
No, there's still a label on this one, so nothing is happening.
It sounds very hard.
They feel, yeah, I mean, I've got a sample up here that they gave me, and I'll put out a piece of pastel mat, and afterwards you can come up and try making a mark with them. So the other way to do that, if you don't have those, is to go in with a small pastel and use the edge of it. Some of these trees are kind of fat. All right, so with more time, I could go in and really refine that, but I just love the feel of it. It's loose, the light's coming through, the viewer immediately knows it's a row of backlit trees. And so I'm gonna stop there. I can always go back and do more, but I don't wanna overdo it. So I'd rather stop a little bit early. The only thing that I'm not really happy with is this right here. That's my focal point, and I'm really happy to get some good light in there. All right, now I want to focus on the reflections in the water. And right here at the line of the bank, I want to get in some good darks. And I'm going to go just test this for a minute. I kind of like that. I think I want one, if I have one that's just slightly darker. This one is slightly darker. The same kind of red violet, but it's slightly darker. And I can get that dark line where the water meets the base of the grasses. You can see I'm not a blender. And now I'm working on the edge of that Terra Ludwig. And then one more thing, there's a little bit of light that comes through, and this gives me an opportunity to use that same orange, that light salmon tint that I had in the sky. I can do just a little bit of that down here. And that I think is going to be one shade too light. I need a little bit darker. I want to pull that same hue into the tops of some of these grasses. Just to give them a little bit more depth. This really is a pretty limited palette. Okay, so now I've got a line of grasses across there. Now I'm really going to go in and look at these trees, or the reflections. And let me see if I can do those in a kind of a brown. Yeah, I like the brown. And so imagine being able to have a photograph of that and then turning it down. Because what you want to see in the water below is exactly what's in the water above. I think that's really worth pulling up here. And in fact, I have even told some of my students, if they're uncertain about it, then use a piece of tracing paper. So if we were to go like this and fold it down, what we see down here is it's just like a mirror. And you can do that even by putting a mirror there and holding it perpendicularly to see what comes below it. And I think sometimes people get into trouble if they don't look at it that way, because then you end up with reflections that don't reflect what's above it. And so there's some here. There's some here. And then there's a light area. So then we need to make sure that we've got our lights there. And remember, the lights are slightly darker in the water. So I'll be putting more of these here. And there's some here. And the water is moving, so I can get that feeling by, and then there's a lot of that blue from up above. It's down here in the water, and the lightest part of the blue is kind of in here. I've got a little bit of it over here. That was a goof. I want some of that feeling of texture in the water, and the only way I can do that so I always think about painting the strokes going the direction of whatever it is that I'm painting. So if trees and grasses grow this way, I like to make my strokes that direction. If it's more water, okay, and I've got one area that I'm not happy with right in here. Okay, now the exception to blending when I'm doing water. Okay. All right, so let's critique it. What do we think about it at this point? And I'll take this away. And I'm not just saying that. Part of, when we struggle and something doesn't work out, that's when we grow. And I like to think that I have that opportunity with every painting that I do. And so adding the critique of people in some of the groups that I'm in is always a really valuable process for me. So, let's critique. Yes?
I see when I squint, a little bit more hot spot highlight in the water where your focal point is. If you squint,
Yes.
just a touch more.
So I agree with you. And again, standing back and squinting, that's exactly what we have to do. So when I squint, I totally agree that if this is my main area, and again, that comes from looking at the photo and we can't always trust the photos. So if I come back and add just a little bit more of that into that area, spot on. Thank you. That improved it a lot. All the difference. What else? What else does it need? Yes.
To the right of the large dark tree, you have a very strong light in the sky, but nothing reflects in the water.
Okay. So up here to the right, like right here? Exactly. Exactly. Spot on. So I need to come down and add
There.
a reflection down here. What else? Yes,
To the right of center in the reflections, you've got like a long white reflection
yes,
that I don't see how that,
exactly. So right here.
no, to the right of
Oh,
center.
right here.
No, see, right there.
Oh, okay. Yep, I agree. So let's get more trees in there. Fix it? Yes.
What about the intensity of the focal point? Like I see this really bright sunset, more at the base of the, of the line of the horizon, at the
Mhm.
bottom of it. Do you think
Intensifying this
the focal point,
here.
either here, well, see, I see it at the bottom, so I
Right.
see it right, like a big bright, but that's what I'm seeing in the photo.
So again, this is where compositionally now there's always I'm trying to put it into words, I'm thinking about it. There's always a way that I see something versus the way that I interpret it in the painting. So to me, putting that big ball of bright light would be so intense that it wouldn't allow the viewer to get out of that area. So that's more a judgment call that I made to soften that intensity so that the viewer can then move through the painting rather than get stuck in that one area.
I have a question, Dawn.
Yeah.
Is that a moon? Is that like the moon rising?
No, it's a sun
Okay.
setting. And and here's another thing. When I was standing there, my eye did not pick up the sun peeking through at that moment. A lot of this is what the camera did because of the exposure. So again, the memory of being there. This is too harsh for me, but being there, this is what my memory was. So at this point, it's been 55 minutes. I truly would walk away. I'd refresh my eyes and go away from the easel. I'd look at something else. I might not come back to this for an hour or two, or maybe tomorrow, and look at it again. And I don't typically look at it with my photo reference out because I'm not judging it against how closely it matches the photo reference. I'm judging it as to whether or not it's a painting that works. And does the composition there? Is the value structure there? Is the temperature there? Does it tell the story and the mood that I wanted to tell with this painting? Why did I do it? And so I would sit and let this sit for a while and then do more.
So if you work more on this further, would you define shapes of the trees, like reflection in the water more, or you would just keep it the way it is?
I would keep it the way it is. I would keep it the way it is. You certainly could define it more. Moving water, and this has a little bit of movement in it.
But they're more defined, that's why.
They're more
I just
defined.
did the reflection
Yeah.
painting,
Yeah.
and I was struggling with it. So I was just wondering, so that would be, you think you don't need to?
I think I don't need, and again, this is where my vine charcoal, which I didn't realize got out of my bag. I did another workshop last Wednesday, and we ran short of vine charcoal, and it didn't get back in. So this might be where I would take a very thick thing of vine charcoal, almost like this charcoal pencil, and I might decide to go in and, I mean, I could define a few more of those but I don't really like the charcoal pencil look. And again, some of this is my style. I'm not a photorealist. I want to give the impression that the reflections are down there, but really, where I want the viewer to go is into the detail right here. The more detail I put down here, the more I pull the viewer's eye away from what's above. Now, I may take this home and look at it and decide tomorrow that I agree with you, but I'd rather stop now. I can always add more. I can't take it away very easily. So,
That was excellent. Thank you.
anyway.